So, welcome back to another video. This one being filmed in a hotel room this time. We're here for GenCon. This is the night before, so it'll be Wednesday. Don't know if it's going to be up on YouTube Wednesday, but that's when we're filming it. And we are going to talk with Julius, who I believe I have mentioned once or twice, but in the event I have not, I know him from playing HeroClix. Met him several years ago doing that.
Many years ago.
Yeah, along with Chris, who I've mentioned, who hasn't made it in the videos yet. Don't know if he will, but he's cool with us talking about him, he said, so we will.
In fairness, you didn't tell me before just now that you mentioned me before.
That's true.
But,
so Julius, I apologize for that.
But full disclosure, I'm cool with it, so here we are.
So anyway, the purpose of this is there was a tip that got left out of our last tip video, and this is my fault for leaving it out. We kind of talked about some of the ways to alleviate the costs and expenses of going to Gen Con, and the one that got left out is that some of the vendors employ volunteers to work for their booths, and there's a whole deal behind that, and we're going to ask Julius to tell us a little bit about what it's like doing that for Wizkids. Julius, have at it.
Thank you, Bobby. I've been a fan of HeroClix, which is kind of Wizkids' flagship product. I'm sure all of you out there in viewerland are familiar with it, or maybe passing familiar.
We have mentioned it a few times, but we haven't gone in depth into it.
Fair. So for those not familiar, it is a pre-painted collectible miniatures game, strategy game. Basically, you build a team, you beat the snot out of each other, and then you celebrate appropriately. Let's hope. Keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourselves, guys. So that's what kind of got me into the Wizkids umbrella, under the Wizkids umbrella, if you will. And as Bobby mentioned, it's a good way to defer costs if you can attend a convention as a volunteer. I will say there's a lot that kind of goes on behind the scenes, with fellow volunteers, and just the kind of things that, like we share our experiences behind the scenes, and then of course there's just that sort of, as I said, camaraderie that comes from, doing physical labor together, and the experiences you have. So generally, with my experiences with Wizkids, I've been a demonstration volunteer. So maybe some of you have seen me at past Gen Cons. You might recognize the halo, but I came to Wizkids, under the umbrella of, hey, I'm familiar with your products and I like what you do, and they said, hey, if you like what we've already done, maybe you would like some of the things that we're going to do in the future, or that we're, that we branched out into. So that's how I got into being a demonstration team person. So in a typical year, they'll have 6 to 12 new products that they're pushing, and my experience is that so we get advanced copies of rules, etc., from the company rather, and then that gives us an opportunity to kind of familiarize ourselves with those things, so that when we come into the hall, we have not obviously an expert level understanding of a game, but enough that we can introduce it to a person or a family, get them an exposure, and hopefully get them interested in looking at the game, or maybe even trying out other products.
So I'm gonna have to give them like a 5 to 10 minute pitch at the very least.
Right. Yeah. That's the idea. Is that basically kind of like an old time carnival barker. I'm showing my age here, but yeah, someone would be like, "Hey, you sir, you look like you're someone who would be interested in learning how to have melee battles with small superhero characters. Why don't you come over here and I'll teach you how to play HeroClix?" Something similar to that, and it's kind of the larger experience for me is that it is almost like acting, right?
Yeah.
Because you come in and you've got, it's like any communication between two people, right? You have an idea set and you want to exchange information. But it's like my idea set is, hey, this is a really fun, interesting thing that I'm doing, and I hope that I can maybe, introduce you or persuade you to that. Take a few minutes of your time, because obviously you go to a convention and, you bought your ticket already, but you want to see as many things and do as many things as
Right,
possible.
right.
So for me, I hope to be part of that, experience that someone comes in and they're like, hey, I tried out this new game and it was pretty fun, and I think that my play group back home would like this, so I'll pick up a copy.
Yeah. Now that's now you do that in the dealer's hall, like at their main booth.
Correct.
But some of the games also have like a more in-depth. Here's how you play from start to finish kind of deal, right?
That's true. So this year in particular, we're doing a game called Onslaught, and if you come to the booth, that is the game I'm actually demonstrating. So you would see me or one of my fellow volunteers playing, and teaching how to play that game. But again, as Bobby indicated, if you wanted a more in-depth experience, then you could go into our gaming hall and sit down with someone. And when you come to do a demo with me, it's just like, this is the preview, so this is what you would, this is what you would see in the kit, etc. You can actually acquire that kit if you were to go into the hall and play that game. So.
Okay. So volunteering, like specifically for Wizkids, like are there any other kinds of duties that you typically have to perform that you go into? Or?
Working with, I would imagine, any game publisher is sort of like working retail. So you have a product that has to be put out and merchandised in a certain way, and obviously when it's most appealing to people, you have to kind of be aware, kind of read your customers, if you will. So if I see somebody wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, I'm like, hey, maybe you'd like to learn to play HeroClix. Oh wait, you've got HeroClix with you. Who am I talking to? Come learn this other game instead. So as I say, we kind of need those details because it is basically a pop-up shop. We have to set up the shop. And then Dave and the show, of course, we have to tear down the shop.
So, are you able to at all talk about, I'd call it compensation, but
so we call it a volunteer opportunity, right? But it's obviously something that they recognize that my time is also money. So in terms of specifically what Wizkids does is they offer us a badge. So we're in the show just like any other person would be. We also have some free time during the days. We're allowed to go around, so we get in before hours, so we can see other things that maybe we'd like to see later in the show when we have free time. And then typically there is product compensation. So generally it's kind of targeted to what you as a person are interested in, but so it kind of, I guess, works at two levels. So it's like they would say, hey, we want everybody to have kind of all of the promo items that we were offering this year.
okay.
And then to say, okay, well, if you like a particular game that you were demoing, for instance, then maybe you could take a demo copy home. So.
Okay. And so without going into super details, if someone were inclined, obviously some of those promo items have a value attached to them if they were going to.
There would be, what is value? This water bottle, was valued to me when it was full, 2 hours ago or whatever. Pardon me. But certainly there are secondary market implications for those things, and from the perspective of what does in my case, my exposure, Wizkids consider, they look at a value of, if you were a person on the street and you bought this thing, what would the value be?
Okay.
So they consider it from the retail value, the MSRP. They obviously have no interest in or impact on secondary market.
Right, yeah, this is just more a comment of, obviously, because of the rarity level of these things. There's probably some of them could potentially have an above and beyond.
They could be.
If one were inclined to part with them.
Perhaps.
So, let's see, so in the case of Wizkids, that's the badge is a 5-day badge, though, because you're here setting up the Wednesday.
As an exhibitor, right. I don't understand, I don't know the pricing structure to say, well, man on the street can only buy a 4-day badge and it's $100 or whatever, and then exhibitor, because they're obviously under a different pricing structure or whatnot.
So this is a related question. Since we don't have 5-day badges, is there anything going on inside like the dealer's hall aside from things being assembled and booths being set up that you're allowed to say anything about?
I mean, I think that in without getting into details, I would just say in the glittering generalities, probably what you imagine, that there are vendors who are maybe have run into each other at other conventions or just see each other at GenCon, what have you. So there are friendships there among some people, and certainly certain of those vendors would say, hey, I've got this thing that I think you would be interested in. So they might do kind of like restaurants sometimes do, where you say, hey, I'm gonna make a pizza and give it to you, and in exchange you're gonna give me a steak dinner.
Okay. Okay, so I guess in that case, my other question would be, since what we see is not so much an industry convention as a trying to sell stuff to us, the customers convention, is there any like the industry side of things going on Wednesday? Like, I don't expect that, like, say a Walmart or Target representative is walking through and being like, hey, give me 10,000 of that thing.
Sure.
I'm assuming nothing like that's happening, at least as near as you can tell.
I mean, if someone were to, and it happens, even on Exhibitors Day, it's going to happen again tomorrow, before hours, it's going to happen throughout the day at the show. Someone's going to come up to me and say, hey, I run like all of the Luxembourg HeroClix tournaments. I was wondering if I could get a bulk deal on getting these promos.
Okay.
As a volunteer, I hear those things. I have, immediately as soon as I say that, I'm like, I am just the guy. Wearing a t-shirt, right? Yeah, and I direct them to the appropriate person.
Okay. Well, that was just a curiosity question because, like I said, we only see the I don't want to call it the retail side because it's a little bit different than retail, but we don't really see so much of like the industry things happening there.
Sure.
Aside from like some of the seminars occasionally.
Sure. Well, I know that.
And since we don't go Wednesday, I don't know if like maybe that's where it happened. If it
Right.
happened
Again, not being a gaming industry professional, just being a volunteer guy who shows up for a week every year, or maybe a couple conventions a year. I don't see those kind of behind the scenes things. I do know that there are high level people from Wizkids who are attending these conventions, and for instance, the head of board game development is often here. Is here this week, and so people are aware of his history and his position in the company, so they will approach him and say, hey, I've got this idea for a game.
Okay.
And there will be meetings of that nature, but again, as an outsider, I'm just like, I know who you need to talk to.
I got you.
Stop me. Stop me.
So do you and anyone else that do you guys ever talk with like some of the volunteers of the other booths and any kind of I don't want to say like who should you not work for, anything like that.
Sure.
Any insight
Right,
how others operate at all, or is it similar, different?
So I know I have met other volunteers, street people off the street, and I think that the majority of people choose to be volunteers because they have faith in the company, or they like the products that the company makes, and would like to be a part of that experience. I mean, that's it for me. I will not deny that I appreciated the compensation that I get.
Sure, but you do because you like HeroClix.
Right. I go into it
not necessarily because like it had, like I mentioned, with a potential value. You're here because you like the game.
Exactly.
That's the vibe I get from every volunteer I meet here too. So I would assume monetarily it's actually not the greatest way to spend your time. Like I suppose it could be if you lucked out, but
right. I mean, you have to, you go into it eyes open.
Yeah.
Right. Like I have never come to a convention and said, "Wow, I spent 4 days of my life, and I spent X amount on hotel, food, drinks, other things that I would not have done were I at home, right? Because it's all part of an experience. I mean, it's like if you decide to go to Tahiti for vacation, right? You're like, wow, I spent $7,000 to get here. Now what? It's like I'm experiencing things, I'm doing things, I'm meeting people, I'm having fun. So
yeah, I was gonna say on a personal level, I kind of came around to that probably 6-7 years ago. That the whole like, well, it's not coming with me, so
sure, yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think that for a lot of your smaller companies, whether they be publishers or retailers, they bring their own standard employees.
Yeah.
You get into bigger companies, and I think that a lot of companies have a similar structure, compensation structure. It's obviously they look for people who are enthused about their products.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to sell things if you're not.
Right, and they want them to be there, right? I do know that different companies absolutely offer different compensation packages, but it's sort of like your day job, right? It's like, hey, if I go over to company B, I could be earning $10,000 more, but I'm going to be starting with no seniority, so I'm going to have to prove myself to these people and that kind of thing. And maybe this guy over here, same age as me, same level of experience, whatever, but he's been with the company for 15 years. So I think I think you have to approach it from that regard. It's like, what is your motivation for wanting to volunteer? If you just want to get into the convention for free, quote unquote, kind of maybe get some behind the scenes access kind of things, maybe it's for you. I mean, for me, like I said, it is absolutely about the fact that I love the products. I like the people who are making the products. So it's good for me from a player and judge perspective, running events in my own venue, that I can talk to some of these people and kind of like you just have kind of pick up conversations like this, where it's not a structured interview or anything. You're just like, hey, I noticed that this new thing is coming out, and what do you think about that? And then you just get the whole puppy dog thing, like their eyes light up, and like, it was so fun to develop that product. There was so much, like we had these spitballing meetings, and we just go back and forth, and it's like, hey, what if we went in this direction? Well, that's great, but what if we also did this? Like, wow.
Yeah, we actually got the smallest taste of that a couple of years ago. Whenever my girlfriend Sarah, the other time she was able to come, we went to the playtesting games area, I think. And afterwards, we did some pretty in-depth surveys as well,
Sure.
about the game itself.
Sure.
They were telling us like their hoped for future plans with it, and like what they were kind of looking for in the feedback for like what they might have to change or whatnot.
Sure.
It's kind of interesting.
I do think that, so maybe that's kind of like, well, think of it as like 3 levels, right? So you have Joe Average. He comes to the convention, he likes the product, he's excited about it, he wants to be in an environment where, a big draw for a lot of people, at least with the Wizkids products, is that we have structured tournaments that either they can't get in their areas because they're in a small or remote area, or there's just not enough interest in the area, etc. Or they have the opportunity to, kind of challenge themselves into being, up against others. So that's one level of player, right? And then you've got people, like you said, you and your girlfriend had the experience of getting to actually talk to developers behind the scenes and like ask them things. So I think the third level is, this volunteer opportunity. You don't seek out conversations, I think, but you do, you are privy to things that are not necessarily secret information. It might be,
but not necessarily widespread either.
Right, and it might be just that, if the question that I thought to ask, you also thought to ask, we'd get the same answer, right? But it was just like, I just happened to be in the room, kind of fly on the wall at the time. Maybe somebody else asked the question. I thought, wow, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great notion. So
I got you. So I guess one last question I would have is, if someone were interested, now obviously this is mainly going to apply to Wizkids because of your experience, but if someone were interested in volunteering, like how do they go about that?
So basically, in the case of Wizkids, during the 4 days of the actual convention, it'll be very easy to distinguish the regular employees from the volunteers, because the regular employees will be wearing, Wizkids polos, or they'll be, not necessarily a higher end shirt, but they are definitely going to wear the brand.
Yeah.
Whereas as volunteers, we have a uniform presentation ourselves. We have nice black and gold bowling shirts.
So going back to the retail analogy, you can tell generally when you're talking to the manager versus the hourly.
Correct. Yeah. It's like I just work here, and I tell people that I don't. I generally like to be a problem solver, but at the same time, it's like these are not the things that I'm an expert in. So it's like basically my immediate reaction is to defer and go, you need to talk to this guy. So in the case of Wizkids, as I said, you would look for one of these people in a polo shirt and just say, hey, I really like the products. I'm really excited about the things that go on here, and I'd really like to be considered for helping out. It's as simple as that.
And then I guess it's not really the last question. There's one other
one
minor follow up to that.
Sure.
Even though we're talking strictly about GenCon, WizKids specifically is at other shows, right?
This is true. Yeah. So pretty much, as I said, the primary compensation is the product, and it's again based off of the intrinsic value, not the imputed value or what have you. So they certainly, basically for the group of people who have either been vetted or have either proven themselves or been vetted by someone else. So, your cousin, your brother, your nephew says they're also interested, and so they get kind of a bona fide from them.
Yep.
So they would have a roster of people that they would call upon, and then just they'll put out open calls and say, hey, we need volunteers for this event, we need volunteers for this event, etc. So a few years ago, Wizkids, so before the pandemic, Wizkids had decided to move to a model of having nationals, U.S. nationals here at GenCon, and then doing World Championship down in Memphis, Tennessee, because there's a connection to Graceland with one of the Wizkids members. So, they basically just put out an open call, and some people, it's a timing issue. I know people who wanted to be at GenCon and could not for various reasons, but they are going to make it to Worlds. Other people said, hey, I can only afford to do one show this year because I have to pay my travel expenses, pay my hoteling, etc.
Right.
So I'm going to choose to go, where the big money is, right? Where all of the, basically the top players, I guess you would say.
So, I guess in this particular case, would that be GenCon or Graceland?
So here at GenCon, again, is U.S. Nationals.
Right.
And then down in Memphis is going to be the World Championships. So for myself, I am on deck. I'm obviously here at GenCon with you. Today, Wednesday, August 3rd, and 2022. And I am going to then also take the time to go to Worlds and be a volunteer there as well.
Okay. Well, does our cameraman have any things? Okay. No?
I mean, if I would have a summation, I know I kind of rambled on some of these points, but if I would have a summation.
We do a lot of rambling in these videos. Don't feel bad at all.
I was going to say, now guys, I'm going to say like and subscribe just because I'm here. But I was unaware 4 days ago that Bobby and Chad and Brad were running this little circus. So I'm going to go like and subscribe. But bigger point being, as I say, in summation, I think, volunteering is a kind of a rare opportunity for a lot of people to maybe, well, aside from, the opportunities to, experience the convention itself,
right.
But just the chance to be somewhat behind the scenes,
yeah.
And, get kind of closer to that thing you love.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, sounds like that's probably going to be it for this. And Julius, I appreciate your time.
Appreciate you having me.
Taking the effort.
Thanks.
And to everyone who watch this all the way through. We appreciate it. Definitely plan on having several more videos before we leave Gen Con and several afterwards, talking about all the various sites we saw, products we bought, food we ate, who knows, I don't know. It was a big part of the topic on one of the earlier videos, so it has precedence.
Kind of give a shout out to our dinner guys.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I was one of the Wizkids employees. Came back from lunch, just beaming from ear to ear. He had leftovers, and I was like, "What was it that made you so happy?" And he said, "There's a place you go out this door here, and you go down that street, and you take a left, and it's right there. Little place, actually right next to our hotel, called Sauce on the Side. All calzones, all the time. So many to choose from. The staff was super awesome." And they tried to tempt our tummies with dessert calzones, which if you show up, I think on the menu they just have banana Nutella and caramel apple, but secret menu item, s'mores calzone.
They all sounded delicious to me, but we had to get down to the convention center to get these lovely things.
And also the calzones themselves, we're a couple of big guys here,
Excellent.
clearly. But yeah, they put us in our place. So we said, hey, the desserts sound really tempting, but probably don't want to, have any stomach issues or whatever later on. So.
All right, so thanks again, Julius, and thank you folks for watching, and keep an eye out for more videos. Talk to you later.
Cheers.